Naruto, killing system turns Hidan into legend. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 31, Wind Escape Vacuum Wave. The air of Tuanzong spat out several scythe-like sharp auras, which could not only cut off the enemy's flesh, but also cut off the opponent's chakra. Poof. The body of the flying segment was like a broken kite, first cut into 3 segments by 2 wind darts, and then cut into countless fragments by the terrifying sickle-like aura, and finally inhaled into the belly by the dream taper. Phew, Danzo gasped excitedly, and the expected Izanagi did not have a chance to be used, and the flying section became the ration of the dream taper under his sharp wind. Humph. The people of the Uchiha clan are really as proud and arrogant as ever, which is their most disgusting common disease. Tuanzo looked at this huge dream taper and couldn't help but say with a look of disgust, his dislike of Uchiha was deeply influenced by his master, the second Hokage, and even more so. This redundant remnant of the Uchiha clan will soon become a mass of filth excreted by the dream taper, which is a happy thing. Now the only thing that is a little difficult for Tuanzo is how to get out of this dead space, which is his biggest headache now, and he has no research on space ninjutsu, and he has no clue at all. For a while, Tuanzong fell into deep thought. On the side, Fei Duan looked at the frozen Tuanzong interestingly, and found that the other party did not find the slightest thing wrong there, so he secretly said that he was bored. It turned out that from the moment Tuanzong entered the blood sea space, the flying segment used the ability obtained from the eternal kaleidoscope, moon reading. The powerful pupil power from the eternal kaleidoscope made Tuanzong unaware of this, and even if he was deeply immersed in illusion, he did not suspect or notice. And Fei Duan is in the illusion realm he created, he knows everything and has witnessed the wonderful performance of Tuanzong alone, but for a person like Fei Duan who is keen on fighting, the illusion of you reading can only be used as a concoction, and only personal combat is what he loves. It's over, take this pawn first. Fei Duan rushed to the high tower in the middle of the sea of blood beckoned, and at the top of the tower, the crow that had been dark and difficult to detect slowly flew to Fei Duan's shoulder and fell, and its left eye was a scarlet ninja dart riding wheel eye, making it look extremely strange. Open your eyes, Fei Duan ordered to Tuanzong, who was caught in the illusion. Tuanzong opened his eyes in confusion, and his eyes looked blankly at the enemy in front of him, but Tuanzong, who was caught in the moon reading, his body could only be controlled by the flying segment. Do it, Fei Duan said to the crow. The crow nodded humanely, turned his face sideways, and his left eye faced Tuanzong's face. The pupil with the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye rotated wildly, and the strongest illusion technique inhabited in it, Bitenjin. Erection. Tuanzong, who was originally confused in the moon reading, instantly regained his senses, and his eyes also returned to clarity, but his gaze towards Fei Duan was not full of hostility and guard, but a kind of obedience replaced the original will. And the agile crow, the kaleidoscope of its left eye gradually slowed down, and the shape of the 4-cornered ninja dart could not continue to be maintained, and slowly returned to the situation of the 3-hooked jade chakra eye. Yikes! The crow chirped, flew back to the tower, and crawled down quietly, as if the release of the other gods had made it quite tired. Looking at the obedient Tuanzong in front of him, Fei Duan's eyes were still full of surprise, although he had already understood the strength of other heavenly gods. But he was even more shocked than he had time to experience it himself. A person who lives in darkness with a firm will be changed in this way, and will follow the will of the flying segment as the core, but will not change any of his memories and preferences. The title of the strongest illusion art of the other heavenly god is really deserved, but this also makes Fei Duan can't help but feel a little gloomy. You know, the weasel still holds such a big killing weapon in his hands. Who knows what kind of behavior Itachi's deep mind will make him, and whether he will eventually use it to change Sasuke's thinking. It is difficult to say, especially now that the flying segment has greatly affected the plot. But the restriction that other gods had to look at each other also slowed down Fei Duan's hanging heart a lot. It seems that at least you have to reach the level of the Eye of Reincarnation to be fully immune to these so-called strongest illusions. Fei Duan witnessed and carefully observed the release of other heavenly gods, and roughly understood the degree of control of other heavenly gods. It is completely beyond the kaleidoscope of the chakra eye of one level, which is an existence that other heavenly gods, Izanami, and others cannot control. But it is also a point that the flying stage cannot reach at present. Danzo, everything will continue as usual in the future. After you go out, you will explain the route yourself, and spread the news that I am a survivor of Uchiha to the whole village, so that they can have a certain understanding of this. Fei Duan made a plan to borrow Tuanzong's hand to make people believe in his identity. In this way, his identity as a survivor of Uchiha is almost solid, and although he will be suspected by some people in Konoha, the problem of identity has been solved, and there is no need to continue to stay in the dark part. Yes, master, Tuanzong followed expressionlessly. Kamui. A spatial vortex was born from Fei Duan's right eye, bringing both Fei Duan and Tuanzong back to the dark crypt. Danzo-sama. Flying segment. As soon as he appeared, Fei Duan heard a voice of surprise and hostility. The source of the sound was the oil girl who was waiting in the crypt to take the route, and the other members of the dark department were sent out to scatter to find the missing group. The oil girl stared at Fei Duan with a guarded face, and the shuriken in her hand seemed to shoot out at any moment. Stand down. Tuanzo's faint oil-flushing woman took the route and ordered, "OB." Although he was full of doubts, as a confidant of Tuanzang, he regarded Tuanzang's orders as a holy decree, and as long as the order was given, then even if he knew that he would die, he would still carry it out. Then, I'll leave first, Master Tuanzo. Fei Duan still glanced at Tuanzang with a grin, and then lost his figure in the spatial vortex. In the empty crypt, only Danzo and Oil Lady Togen remained, and a moment later, Tuanzo's voice sounded in the silent crypt, order down, spread the news that Hidan is a survivor of Uchiha to the entire village, just say that he was sent out by the third generation of Hokage to carry out a secret mission, be sure to let everyone know, yes. The oil girl's eyes were full of shock, but she still buried all the doubts in her heart and walked out, leaving Tuanzang alone at his desk. A strange light flashed in his one-eyed eyes. Episode 32. The next day, the whole of Konoha exploded. The reason is very simple, the Uchiha clan, which has been exterminated, there is still a teenager who is tens of years old, and it is the person brought in by the previous 3 generations of Hokage at the gate of the village, the silver-haired and shy boy. Now, the whole village is talking about this. Originally there were only 2 people left of Uchiha. One of them was the culprit of Uchiha's downfall, and the other was his own brother. So what interesting things will happen with these 2 brothers now, this extra one? Various speculations have become the talk of conversation before and after tea. Some say that Hidan will seek revenge, some say that Hidan will take care of Sasuke, and even more daring people say that Hidan will take revenge on Konoha. However, the high level of Konoha, represented by the ape flying sun, was the first to justify Fei Duan, saying that he was a trustworthy person, and the reason why Fei Duan was able to escape was precisely because he went out to carry out the secret mission issued by the 3 generations. As for what task, it was not something they should know. After the clarification of the high level of Konoha, the turmoil of Uchiha survivors gradually dissipated, and the figure of Hidan began to move from the dark part to Konoha village, enjoying a leisurely life. The identity of the dark department is no longer needed, and the people in the village do not have any other opinion of him now, but they also keep their distance from him, and the devil knows if an exterminated person will become a madman. It is worth mentioning that Kakashi also gave up his job in the dark department at the same time and became Konoha's upper ninja teacher, which Hidan attaches great importance to, because it will mean that the plot may begin in these 2 years. In a small forest, from time to time there is a clanging sound. A black-haired child wearing a Uchiha clan uniform is diligently practicing shuriken. The surrounding trees are hung with round targets, and above each target, there is a shuriken in the heart. He is the true survivor of Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha. Originally, his shuriken practice today had already been completed, but since he learned the news, he couldn't suppress the violent fluctuations in his heart, and once again ran here to vent some suppressed emotions in his heart by practicing away. Why? Why? All dead, why are there survivors? Ah, the vision of that night seemed to come again. The scarlet moon and his parents in a pool of blood made his thin body tremble. Hatred ignited a raging fire in his eyes, burning everything he saw. In Sasuke's eyes, the pupils turned scarlet, and 2 black Goyu slowly rotated in them, and he turned away from the grove, and the existence of the flying segment had disturbed his hate-filled heart. In Konoha village, at the famous Ichiraka ramen restaurant, Hidan is enjoying this rare delicacy, and the smooth and strong ramen is far better than the instant noodles I used to eat. While eating the noodles, he also looked at the child sitting at the table in front of him with an interesting look. Orange hair, 3 beard-like marks on both sides of the mouth, light blue eyes, the whole person exudes a faint natural temperament. However, Fei Duan observed something even more terrifying hidden in his body. A 9-tailed demon fox was sleeping in his body, and the demon fox's body was shackled and locked, making it unable to break free. The boy's name is also coming out, and it is one of the future protagonists, Naruto Uzumaki. Looking at the mountain of noodle bowls piled up in front of Naruto's table, Hidan couldn't help but be speechless. Sure enough, as described, his favorite food is Ichiraka ramen, but this is too good to eat. This small body, where have you put so many faces? Fei Duan's eyes are becoming more and more strange, worthy of being the protagonist. Even eating is a bug-like existence. Where is the flying segment? Give me out. As Hidan studied Naruto, a cold and haughty voice sounded in his ears. A teenager appeared in front of the Ichiraka ramen restaurant, young but full of killing intent and hatred. The boy is Sasuke, who cannot suppress the conflict in his heart, and with his keen insight into the chakra eye, he finds the Hidan located at the Ichiraka ramen restaurant. Although he didn't know him, Sasuke's intuition told him that the silver-haired boy in front of him was the person he was looking for, the one who should have died but survived. Disturbed by Sasuke, the guests in Ichiraka ramen house left one after another. A fox demon imp who had been ostracized since childhood, 2 survivors of the Uchiha clan. They were all worried that if they continued to stay here, they were afraid that something terrible would happen. Oh? Are you looking for me for something? The corners of Hibito's mouth croaked, sucked a bunch of noodles into his mouth, and looked up at Sasuke in front of the door. A person who is full of hatred and goes his own way. This is the first parody that Fei Duan gave him. You're another survivor of the Uchiha clan? Where did you go on the day Uchiha was destroyed? Why didn't you return to the clan? Did you just watch the race go to ruin? Sasuke asked with a frantic face, and the burst of hatred had begun to gradually distort his heart. Because I have a mission, Fei Duan just replied with a calm face. Mission? Task? Mission. For the sake of the mission, did you just watch the Uchiha clan be destroyed like this? You don't deserve to be part of Uchiha. You should die and sacrifice the heroic spirit of the Uchiha clan with your blood. Hijuan's calm tone, simple explanation, made Sasuke's anger burn even more. His eyes were already filled with crazy hatred, and his body was gradually taken over by demons called hatred and anger. Scold. A shuriken shot out from Sasuke's hand, and the target was Hibito, who was sitting at the table, and the blade of the shuriken pointed straight at Hibito's eyebrows. Bite. The shuriken was collided with by a large bowl, deviated from its original trajectory, and shot onto a pillar on the side. Hey! The smelly fart imp over there, don't you know that it's rude to disturb people to eat? The owner who threw out the large bowl made a sound, and he was Naruto Uzumaki, who was sitting at a table next to Hida. None of your business. Fuck me off. Sasuke roared, his eyes staring dead at Hito. And Hijuan is quite funny. Naruto is still nosy as always, and the bond with Sasuke is really inseparable, so small urine collided together, or because of himself, Hijuan's eyes can't help but strange. Episode 33. Thank you, Hida to Naruto in front of him. Naruto turned his head and said with a big grin, it's nothing, this smelly little ghost, suddenly make a move, it's really unbearable. I'm thankful, but you're no match for him, so step aside. Hida pointed at Sasuke and then to the chair on the side, signaling Naruto to go back and sit. At this time, Naruto was not as good as the well-trained Sasuke, unless the 9 tails in his body erupted, but if the seal was not loosened, Naruto could barely use a little chakra from it. Naruto looked at the silver-haired boy in front of him with a dull expression. I saved your life. Do you want to look down on me so much? You must know that you were so scared that you stayed where you were just now and didn't dare to move. Naruto naturally thought that Fei Duan did not dodge because he was afraid, and his simple brain circuit was so willful. Thank you for your kindness, but this is a matter between Uchiha, so don't interfere. Thank you, Hida explained with a smile again, and by the way, he pushed Naruto into a chair and sat down. Naruto, since it is someone else's family affair, then he can't interfere. The family system in this world is very strict. Outsiders can't interfere in it at will. Once they intervene, it will mean a provocation. Come with me, find an empty place, and break someone else's things. It's not polite. Hida walked out in front of Sasuke, ignoring his eyes full of hatred and anger. Sasuke gritted his teeth and followed. His twisted mind made him feel ambivalent about the existence of Hijuan, and he wanted to kill him, but he couldn't help but have an urge to get closer. In an empty field, Hida and Sasuke stood opposite each other, and there was a Naruto hidden not far away. He was worried about whether something would happen to the two, so he followed all the way, and Hida and Sasuke didn't care about it. In the end, the killing intent in Sasuke's heart overwhelmed the feelings of his kindred, and he rushed towards Hijuan with a shuriken in hand, stabbing Hijuan's heart fiercely. However, the expected splash of blood did not happen, but Sasuke stumbled and fell to the ground because of the unstable center of gravity. Naruto was stunned to see this scene in front of him. Sasuke just held a shuriken through Hibito's body, and then fell to the ground. Naruto rubbed his eyes hard. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him, it was too weird. Sasuke, who personally experienced this process, rolled over and stood up. The mist just now made his consciousness much calmer, and the weird ability of the flying segment also made him despair. Sasuke's eyes froze, and he made a decision. Since hand-to-hand combat is ineffective, then he can only use the ninjutsu he just mastered. Sasuke clasped his hands together, in a half-squat position. Weishin Nunin, the art of the fire done, and the great fireball. Sasuke held his right hand and put it to his mouth, and then a fiery breath gushed out, and the bright yellow flames turned into a huge fireball and flew to the location where the flying segment was, wrapping the flying segment in a blazing fire. There was a hint of excitement in Sasuke's eyes. This was the most powerful ninjutsu he could currently use, and the huge fireball with a terrifying heat gave Sasuke a glimmer of hope to defeat Hibito. And yet, Sasuke, who was obscured by the fireball, slowly waited for the fireball to dissipate, revealing the flying segment that was still unscathed inside, and he looked at Sasuke with cold eyes, and his eyes had already transformed into the form of a kaleidoscope. Have you had enough, Sasuke? Fei Duan said coldly, it seems that you still don't know enough about what strength is. Your brother slaughtered the whole clan for the same eyes as me, but you are still so stupid. So, let me help you relive your old dreams. Monthly reading. The kaleidoscope of Fei Duan's left eye turned wildly, and the terrifying pupil force acted on Sasuke's body, and Sasuke had already been shocked by Hibito's eyes that were the same as his brother, slumped to the ground, and became sluggish under the power of Tsukiyo's pupils, and the terrifying illusion once again descended on Sasuke's body, but he could not resist. He could only watch the weasel in the fantasy slaughter his group over and over again. Fei Duan is not a good person. He has been provoked by Sasuke, a little brat. If he does not teach some lessons, I am afraid that he will harass himself endlessly. And Tsukiyomi is the most feared dream in Sasuke's heart, and it is also a nightmare that he will linger for the rest of his life. Now you understand what power is? Your hatred for your brother is not enough. You are still in the mood to pay attention to me. Without the same eyes, you are not qualified to talk to your brother. Do you understand? Fei Duan pointed to his eyes, looking heartbroken. And at this time, Sasuke had also been released from the illusion created by Hidan. Grief, hatred, anger, powerlessness, all kinds of expressions appeared on his face, until he heard Hido's words. His face was completely covered by hatred, and his mouth kept chanting Uchiha Itachi, and the harsh voice was like about to cut it by 1,000 cuts. Hidan laughed. What supported Sasuke's growth was the vast hatred. The more hatred, the faster he advanced. Hidan had begun to look forward to Sasuke's growth. The faster he grew, the more favorable it would be to Hibi's future plans. Naruto looked at everything that happened in front of him, and in a blink of an eye, Sasuke, who was still showing his might, sat on the ground like mud, and the hatred in his eyes was completely unconcealable, so that Naruto couldn't help but feel terrified, and what caused all this was the silver-haired boy who looked a little shy. Faden looked at Naruto in the grass and said with a playful expression, "Naruto. How would he know my name? What does he want to do? Monthly reading?" Ming's eyes were instantly confused, squatting in place. "Forget what happened today and get a good night's sleep," Fei Duan said in a low voice. He didn't want to be stabbed out by Naruto today's matter. It would cause suspicion from those who cared, and the things that he led Sasuke to hate could not attract the attention of others, especially Itachi. Episode 34. In the end, Sasuke left in a hateful look, while Naruto was made to forget a memory by Hida with a moon reading and let him return home. It's really boring waiting time. Before the plot starts, everything seems so boring, and the strong are hiding, waiting to pop out one after another. Hida walked around Konoha's village, mumbling to himself. Suddenly, Fei Duan's gaze was attracted by a small thing happening in the distance. It was in the small playground of the village, where the village children played, and the two swings were tied to the trees, which was the only play prop for the children in this era. What Fei Duan noticed was that a group of children were throwing stones at a little girl, and their mouths were shouting, "Don't play with this monster. She must be a monster. Her eyes are different from ours. Yes, yes. Don't play with her. Monsters, get out of here." The little girl's delicate face was covered with tears of grievances, and a pair of white pupils looked around even more aggrievedly. She didn't understand why they didn't want to play with themselves. Why did they hate themselves so much, and what did they do wrong? "My luck is so good. I actually ran into Hinata loli." Fei Duan's mood instantly became happy. The one who was bullied in the distance was the cute Hinata little eyebrow. "Hey. Little ghost heads. Isn't bullying a little girl a little too much?" Hinata instantly appeared beside Hinata, pulled him behind him, and accused a group of imps. "You, who are you? Why do you care about us? We are driving away monsters." A little ghost saw that the person who came was a guy much older than them, so he asked with some lack of confidence, "Monster? You are the monsters. Such a cute little girl, but you bully her so much. What a group of hateful little ghosts." Fei Duan pretended to grit his teeth and said. Hinata behind him was cautiously looking at some tall figures in front of him, and for a moment her whole heart was filled with flying segments. This was the first time she met a child who did not say that she was a monster, and her heart was indescribably moved. Treating a well-behaved little girl like this is really infuriating, and I can't care if I don't teach you a lesson. Fei Duan scolded angrily, and then struck. With his current strength, a group of little fart children didn't even see the shadow, so they were beaten with big bags all over their heads, and they ran back to their mother one by one crying. Fei Duan clapped his hands easily, turned to look at the cute Hinata little loli, and asked gently, "Are you okay? The bad guys have been beaten away." Fei Duan only felt that under his teenage appearance, there was a strange heart in his 40s, hidden. However, in fact, he is only 20 years old. It's okay. Hinata was as shy as ever, and looked at Fei Duan with a small blush, two fingers constantly circling his chest, unable to speak for a while. Fei Duan is even more eye-catching, a perfect little loli that combines cuteness, well-behaved, shyness, innocence, etc. When he grows up, he is even more beautiful, and Fei Duan has prepared a perfect loli cultivation plan. "Big brother, aren't you afraid of me?" Hinata seemed to pluck up the courage to ask the question she was most concerned about now. She was really afraid to get a negative answer from Hida, the only person who helped herself. If even he was afraid of himself, then Hinata's young mind did not know what kind of blow to suffer. Scared? Why be afraid? How can such a cute little girl as Hinata be scary? Fei Duan smiled and touched Hinata's head. Hinata was really well behaved when he was a child. Phew, suddenly killed by Fei Duan's touching her head, Hinata's little face became more and more rosy, and she let out a kitten-like low sound, but her eyes were full of joy, and she finally met someone other than the clan who was not afraid of her eyes. "Big brother, can you play with me on the swing?" Hinata plucked up the courage and looked up at the flying segment. Her eyes were full of longing. She sincerely hoped that she could find a playmate, and the flying segment in front of her was his best choice. Fei Duan muttered. Hinata's face instantly darkened, and two fingers began to circle around his chest again, and the tears in his eyes were about to drip down immediately. "Of course." Fei Duan immediately replied, just thinking in his heart, if someone sees that someone my age is still playing on the swing, then it will be black history. "Great." Hinata broke and smiled, sincerely exuding joy, took Fei Duan's hand and walked to the swing, and then stared at Hida with cute big eyes, expectantly, and the meaning in his eyes was self-evident. Flying segment. You sit up and I'll push behind you, okay? Of course, Fei Duan has to follow the little loli's thoughts, but today is a day that impresses Hinata, and of course he must be satisfied. Seeing that Fei Duan was so sensible, Hinata little loli laughed happily and nodded, okay. Hinata firmly grasped the swing rope with both hands and sat up, and the flying section swayed the swing unhurriedly behind him, causing Hinata sitting on the swing to emit a crisp and pleasant laugh like a oriole. The whole small playground was filled with Hinata's laughter. This was the first time she ran out of her home, the first time she was so happy. It was all because of the arrival of the flying section, and everything today will be deeply remembered in her heart. Miss Hinata, we should go back. At dusk, a member of the Hyuga family with Konoha's forehead guard walked out from not far away and walked towards Hinata, who was enjoying himself. Hida glanced up at him, and then continued his work, swinging. He had already discovered the arrival of this person, but there was no noise. As long as Hinata was not willing to go back, then even if Hinata came, he would let Hinata continue to play happily. Sure enough, with the arrival of the members of the Hyuga family, Hinata's face instantly collapsed, but she still smiled and said to Hijuan, "Big brother, I'm going back, I'll come to you again in the future, okay?" Fei Duan also stopped the movement in his hand and said, "Then, let's play here today, we'll see you next time." Although Hinata was a little reluctant, he still jumped off the swing, walked to the side of the Hinata member, turned his head and said to Hinata, "My name is Hinata, big brother, what is your name?" Fei Duan smiled and said, "My name is Fei Duan." Hinata remembered the name in her heart, and then waved her hand at Fei Duan reluctantly, and walked back with the family members who looked shocked on the side. Hida also waved at Hinata and watched them leave. Episode 35. Miss, you can stay away from him in the future. Fei Duan is a survivor of the Uchiha clan. It is rumored that he has already opened the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye at such a young age, which is very terrifying. On the way back to the Hyuga clan, the member of the Hyuga clan whispered to Hinata, even he did not expect that Hida would accompany his eldest lady to swing, which was really a joke. He must warn the eldest lady to keep her distance from Hida. The Uchiha clan is an ominous clan, and the Hinata clan must not be involved with it. This is the order of Hinata Hayashi himself. Hinata replied absent-mindedly, constantly turning to look behind him, as if Fei Duan could jump out from behind at any time to surprise himself, obviously not taking his words to heart. Where did a little girl's heart come from? So many family relationships or something? She only knew that Fei Duan was good to her and was willing to play with her, and that was enough. The Hinata members looked at Hinata in a daze, patting their heads, full of chagrin. Obviously Hinata did not pay attention to It seems that they must report to the head of the family and let the head of the family make a decision. The big and the small too walked on the path with their own thoughts, and the dusk light kept dragging their shadows out. On the cliff of the Hokage statue, Fei Duan was lying bored on it. At this time the dusk was over, the starry sky was high, the bright moon was shining, and Fei Duan liked to gaze at the starry sky in the night, because it was as vast as his heart, but there was still some light in the darkness. Swish! A masked root member appeared in front of Fei Duan's eyes. He was half kneeling in front of Fei Duan, holding a scroll in his hand. "Master Fei Duan, this is a secret letter that Master Tuanzang asked me to send." He folded the scroll with both hands, then stepped aside and turned his back. Fei Duan took the scroll suspiciously. The plot had not yet begun in this time period, but Tuanzang suddenly sent a secret letter. What was the idea? In his doubtful eyes, Fei Duan opened the scroll and read it carefully, and then the corners of his eyebrows kept turning up, and a playful smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. It turns out that this guy and Tuanzang really can't be quiet for a moment. "Go back and tell Tuanzo that I will join them in the operation tomorrow," Fei Duan said to the root member in front of him. "Yes." With a response, the root members laughed. "Such an interesting drama, how can I go to make it lively? What's more, there is still a large amount of killing points to get, so why not?" Fei Duan's eyes are full of bloodthirsty light, and the stars in the night sky seem to be faintly red. Early the next morning, Fei Duan stood up, chakra ran, dried the dew on his body, and he slept on the cliff all night. At present, he has no house to live in Konoha village. His house is in the gloomy dark part, where it is too humid and cold, and Hida does not like that environment, and has spent some time on this cliff. The feeling of being unrestrained, in fact, is still good sometimes. The drama is about to open, Fei Duan said with an evil smile. With the appearance of the spatial vortex, the figure of the flying segment disappeared above the cliff. Root, Danzo is getting ready. The oil girl Root and another member of the Yamanaka clan are close behind. Today, Danzo will make a move to change the pattern of the ninja world, and now wait for the participation of the flying section. Suddenly, Tuanzong turned to look back, and a spatial vortex instantly appeared, accompanied by the figure of the flying segment. "I've been waiting for a long time, Master Tuanzo." Fei Duan squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Since you're here, let's go." Tuanzong said coldly. The submissive meaning in his eyes was perfectly hidden, and he strictly followed the order of everything as usual that Fei Duan said. "Danzo-sama, why should we join forces with him?" "You know," the oil girl asked excitedly when she saw the arrival of the flying segment. He wondered why the Tuanzang lord wanted to join forces with the flying segment. "Shut up." I have my own thoughts. Tuanzong glanced coldly at the oil girl. The oil girl instantly felt cold when he took the route. He almost forgot the horror of his master, Tuanzong. He actually dared to question Lord Tuanzong, and cold sweat instantly dripped down. Subordinates know the mistake. The oil girl stood aside and said no more, silent like a piece of wood. Fei Duan looked at the scene in front of him interestingly, and was still quite satisfied with the means of Tuanzang's imperial court, and turned his head to look at Tuanzong, only to find that after a few days, Tuanzang's body had undergone tremendous changes. His right eye is wrapped in white cloth, and his hands are hidden in the wide-sleeve robe. Chakra's strength has surpassed the quasi-shadow level, reaching the level of shadow level. Through the writing wheel eye, Fei Duan clearly felt Tuanzang's right eye and right arm, with the same breath as his own eyes. It seems that he has already accepted the transformation of the big snake pill. Fei Duan put his eyes on Tuanzang's right arm, and according to the plot, Tuanzang's right arm was transplanted with 10 Sharingan eyes, plus a total of 11 right eyes. But because the spiritual power of the Sharingan is too strong, it is necessary to transplant the wood cells of the original Hokage to cooperate with it, in order to achieve the balance limit of the spiritual body, and the current Danzo can use anti-heaven ninjutsu like Izanagi, although there are restrictions, but it can already be regarded as a strong person in the shadow level. However, according to Fei Duan's estimate, Tuanzong, who had just been transplanted for a long time, should now need to rely on the seal on his right arm to gradually fuse the Sharingan until he finally reached a situation that was fully integrated and controllable. Fei Duan was even thinking that if Sasuke hadn't killed Danzo and given Danzo a certain amount of time to grow, would this guy who died early really reach the level he expected? Interesting. Let's go, and kill Hanzo's men first, and then watch our Danzo-sama perform. Fei Duan directly used Shenwei to transfer all the people in the house and galloped towards the location given by Tuanzong. In an ebony forest, several ninjas of the rain country dressed in armor were running among the trees, each of them wearing a mask, and they couldn't see the real face under the mask. Suddenly, their footsteps stopped, because a strange vortex appeared in front of them, and as the vortex rotated, more than 30 ninjas with masks appeared in front of them, led by a one-eyed middle-aged man, and a boy with silver hair and a Tengu mask. Episode 36. Alert! The leading Yuin village ninja shouted loudly, and then all the Yuin village ninja pulled out their small swords and looked at the people who suddenly appeared in front of them with a wary expression. Who are you? What do you want to do? The leader asked loudly. As a sentient ninja, he had already felt the strong malice in the other party, but he still had luck. Tuanzong didn't speak, but Fei Duan laughed ridiculously. Are the people in Yuin village so naive? Do you think we showed up to invite them to dinner? No wonder it's used by you, Tuanzo. The only function of Yuin village is to use it to help me ascend to the position of Hokage. As for these trash fish, let's kill them, Danzo said bluntly, not caring at all about his ambition to subvert the 3 generations to become Hokage. As for his subordinates, it is impossible to say it, and all the root members have been planted by Tuanzang with his unique secret technique, the seal of the tongue curse. There is simply no way to say anything related to Tuanzo to others. Okay, then kill it. I haven't done it for a long time in Konoha, my hands are itchy. Fei Duan moved his fingers, and his whole body made a crackling sound. However, the people of Yuin village listened to the conversation of Fei Duan and others, but their hearts were cold, and they immediately ordered, retreat. They are not stupid, obviously feeling that the other party is stronger than themselves and others, they will not choose to fight hard, not to mention that they still want to go back to Hanzo-sama with the message of inviting Xiao to organize negotiations, and there is no need to stay long at this time. Running away is not a good habit. Fei Duan said to the ninja of Yuin village, and then used divine power to transfer the bloody march scythe placed in the space of the sea of blood. Fei Duan's hands quickly froze. He was too lazy to pursue the enemy, so he thought of the easiest way. Fire Uchiha, fire flame array. Fei Duan slapped his palm on the ground, and 4 red walls of fire rose up into the sky, instantly surrounding everyone within the wall of fire, leaving no gaps. Water dragon technique. The ninjas of Yuin village do not sit still in the face of the terrifying wall of fire, but work together to use the water dun ninjutsu, wanting to concentrate on attacking one place in order to break the wall of fire. Wow! The fusion of water and fire erupted with a huge sound, and the majestic steam enveloped the entire Uchiha fire flame array, making it impossible to see what was happening inside. Damn it! How so? The leader of Yuin village looked desperately at the still blazing wall of fire in front of him, unable to figure out why the water dun used to gather the power of dozens of people could not even break through a wall of fire. Chatter. Fei Duan's eerie laughter echoed in this space. The steam generated by the intersection of water and fire could not block the perception of chakra by the Sharingan, and the people of Yuin village were now exposed to Fei Duan's eyes like living targets, but they had to curl up together because their vision was blocked, guarding against the next attack. The figure of the flying segment gradually disappeared into the air, and the next moment, at the feet of a ninja in Yuin village, the flying segment suddenly appeared from the ground, and the huge scythe instantly cut him in two. Blood and internal organs were instantly thrown on the ground, and he lost his voice in despair. This was a massacre that was doomed to the end. Under the strange ability of Kamui's incomprehensible ability, a group of ninjas of the Rain Ninja Village, who were no more than the highest shinobi, fell one by one in a pool of blood, each with a huge tear wound on their body, or was directly cut off by the waist. The breath of blood is still so beautiful. Fei Duan tasted the smell of blood in the air and smiled. The wall of fire that shrouded the surroundings instantly dispersed, and the steam gradually dissipated, leaving only a corpse in the ground, a living mouth, and the bodies of the root members trembling slightly from fear. This person really makes people feel cold. He is actually enjoying the killing. As members of the roots, killing people is just a normal thing, but they have never acted like this, and Fei Duan is killing as if he were his favorite game, wantonly slaughtering. Only Tuanzong calmly watched everything that happened in front of him, as if nothing could make him have any fluctuations in his demeanor. Let's go. The evidence is already there. The human evidence still exists. Now we can let the pepperfish Hanzo use it for us. Tuanzong said to his subordinates. You guys, even if I die, I will not let you succeed. The only remaining living mouth roared madly, under the slaughter of the silver-haired boy. His mind was about to collapse, and now he heard Tuanzo's conspiracy. He immediately picked up his shuriken and stabbed it into his heart. Sometimes death is a difficult thing to do. Fei Duan chuckled. Monthly reading. The terrifying pupil power instantly made the only survivor lose his consciousness, and the next moment he seemed to regain consciousness, and his eyes were clear and clear. But in fact, with his weak mental power, he has become a puppet at the mercy of Faden. How to say, you just explained to him, killing such a weak person, it's still very boring. Fei Duan waved his hand. The rest of the matter can be handed over to Tuanzong, if it is not for the fact that he does not want to waste killing points. He himself is too lazy to do it. But who made him so poor now? Upgrading the eternal kaleidoscope has already consumed the vast majority of his killing points, leaving only a little more than 5,000 killing points. For him now, no matter how small the mosquito is, it is also meat, isn't it? Tuanzo walked in front of Yoshinobu, whispered, and after explaining, he took the root members and rushed towards Yuin village, and Fei Duan secretly sneaked into Yuin village, visiting idly. For this village with light rain all year round, Fei Duan is still quite interested, not to mention, in the future, this will become the base camp of pain controlled by Nagato. As for how Danzo gained the trust of Hanzo and deceived him, it is not a matter of concern for Fei Duan. Moreover, with Tuanzo's ability, this is simply a trivial matter, otherwise there would be no situation of Yahiko's death in the plot. At this time, Tuanzo had been invited by Hanzo and began a conversation between them, which was also a conversation that changed the fate of several people's lives, and their life and death decisions would be completely taken another path because of Tuanzo's conspiracy. Episode 37. 3 days later, the place of negotiation agreed upon by Hanzo and Yahiko was on a wasteland of barren life. Hibito observes what is happening in front of him in the dark, and as the plot develops, at this moment, Hanzo is threatening Yahiko and Nagato with Konan. Tuanzang, on the other hand, is the person who leads the roots, and has already evacuated Yuin village. The conspiracy has taken effect, and they don't need to stay here any longer. Hanzo looked coldly at the two people surrounded below. As for Yahiko and the other members, they had already been destroyed by Hanzo's people. Ding! Hanzo threw the shuriken in his hand in front of the two and said grimly, that redhead over there, kill Yahiko with this, so that I will release this woman and you, otherwise, you will watch her completely wither before your eyes. Fei Duan looked at Xiaonan, who was held hostage by Hanzo, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It is worthy of the two-dimensional world, and it is a rare beauty. Xiaonan has a mature and delicate face, light blue-purple hair, light orange pupils, a lilac paper flower on the right side of his head, purple eyeshadow, and a small silver lip stud at the lower end of his lips. She is like a lilac violet, exuding her unique charm. At this moment, she was shouting loudly, telling Nagato and Yahiko to abandon her and run away. Her hands and feet were bound by special ropes, unable to run chakra, and even her movements were particularly difficult, so she could not escape at all. Nagato, kill me, Yahiko said calmly to Nagato. He was already determined to die. Nagato moved to the location of the shuriken step by step, slowly picked it up. His eyes were full of confusion, and he whispered Konan in his mouth, and he was at a loss for a while. Poof. Nagato looked at Yahiko in front of him in shock. His hand could feel the warmth of Yahiko's blood, and the weight of Yahiko half lying in front of him. Yahiko saw Nagato the moment he picked up the shuriken, and flew towards Nagato, and his vital point was stabbed by the shuriken in Nagato's hand. You and Xiaonan live anyway, you are the savior of this world, at your words it really can. Before he finished speaking, Yahiko lay in a pool of blood. Yahiko! Xiaonan shouted hoarsely, knelt on the ground, the tears in her eyes could no longer be controlled, they flowed out, and her body trembled slightly with sadness. Yahiko's death obviously made her suffer a huge blow. Nagato, on the other hand, stood trembling in place, his left eye exposed under his red hair widened deadly, and his pupils were even more inconceivable, completely unable to believe what was happening in front of him. Nagato, on the other hand, stood trembling in place, his left eye exposed under Hongfa was open deadly, and his pupils were even more inconceivable, completely unable to believe what was happening in front of him. Do it! At this moment, Hanzo gave an order. His ninja shot a shuriken that had already been prepared, and actually wanted to shoot Nagato directly. Nagato's pupils shrank, his eyes looked fiercely at the shuriken that attacked in the air, and he stretched out his hand. Bite! 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 Countless shurikens were blocked by inexplicable force and fell to the ground one after another. It actually bounced off? How did you do it? The ninjas of Yuin village felt inexplicable fear and doubt, and this incomprehensible power brought them a powerful shock. Just when the ninjas of the Rain Hidden village were shocked, Nagato flew up and jumped to Konan's side in an instant, while Hanzo quickly flew back until he withdrew some distance and pressed the ground with his right hand with chakra. The ground where Nagato and Konan stood seemed to come to life, and a layer of detonation charms instantly wrapped around Nagato's calf. Bright yellow fire burst out from the detonator in an instant, and countless detonating charms exploded in the next instant. At this moment, Fei Duan made a move, and his left eye instantly turned into an eternal kaleidoscope form, and his terrifying pupils burst forth. Kamui. A spatial vortex instantly appeared beside Xiaonan, and in Nagato's angry eyes, he sucked Xiaonan into it and brought him into another space, and also avoided the bombardment of the detonation charm. Rumble. The next moment, the detonation charm emitted a terrifying roar, and with a powerful explosion, Nagato was obliterated in it. The smoke cleared, revealing Nagato's figure, who had not been killed, but his legs had been blown up. Hanzo stepped forward and looked at the disappearing Konan. His heart was shocked. While Nagato was completely crazy, he thought that all this was the ghost of Hanzo of the pepperfish. As the people of Yuin village jumped into the air and attacked Nagato, Nagato's eyes were hideous, his heart had completely changed, and he would become a god of this world. And thus change this miserable world. Psychic Outer Path Golem. A giant hand came out of the groundbreaking ground and swept through midair, shooting down a group of soy sauce ninjas from the Rain Ninja village, and their life and death were unknown. The huge Outer Path Golem completely emerged from the earth, emitting an earth-shattering roar, and the sound wave blasted the dust around it. A black spear protruded from the chest of the golem of the outer way, and small black spears split from it, and then one by one it was inserted straight into Nagato's back, and in Nagato's painful snort, it was connected with Nagato's chakra, absorbing Nagato's chakra. The head of the outer golem rushed forward, the huge mouth opened, and a purple ball of light continuously rotated and formed in its mouth, and then spewed out, like purple smoke, and finally turned into a purple dragon, rushing towards all the ninjas present with red eyes. That unparalleled speed allowed the purple dragon to pass through the bodies of countless ninjas in an instant, and their souls were pulled out by the body of the dragon and became part of the dragon. With Nagato's roar, the purple dragon obeyed Nagato's will, and in the blink of an eye, all the ninjas present were slaughtered, leaving only Hanzo, who was still calmly watching the purple dragon and Nagato. Episode 38. In the space of the Sea of Blood, above the tower, Xiaonan looked at the dead space in front of him. Except for the scarlet sea of blood, there was only the scorched island, and there was no sound in the entire space. Which is it? Xiaonan whispered to himself. Obviously he was still in the middle of the battlefield just now, but suddenly the vortex that appeared pulled it into a completely different world. Just when Xiaonan was puzzled, a spatial vortex appeared in front of her eyes, and the figure of Fei Duan appeared in front of her in the next moment. Looking at the silver-haired boy with the Tengu mask in front of him, Xiaonan guessed that this should be the culprit who brought her into this space, but she did not get angry because of this, but calmly looked at Fei Duan, wanting to know what he planned to do and what was the purpose of bringing himself into the space. While she looked at Fei Duan also looked at her carefully and scrupulously admiring her wonderful figure. This woman, he will not let her go today. He wants her to be his little maid willingly, an obedient little maid. How's it going outside? Konan finally didn't hold back and asked the question she was most concerned about. Nagato's safety made her unable to let go, and she had been in this space for a while. She was worried that Nagato would completely run away because of herself and Yahiko. As it turned out, her fears were correct, and outside, Nagato had already stormed away. Things are not bad outside, and your companions are still alive, Fei Duan replied. Phew, Xiaonan breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he was alive, it was enough. Why did you bring me here? What purpose do you have? Xiaonan asked again, looking at Fei Duan even more guardedly. Hearing Xiaonan's question, Fei Duan touched his head, feeling quite embarrassed to say. After all, he hadn't done such a thing before, and he really didn't know how to speak. After hesitating for a moment, Fei Duan removed the Tengu mask on his face, revealing his true youth. Xiaonan looked at the boy under 15 years old in front of him in disbelief, and there was even a hint of childishness on his face, but such a young guy would actually use the legendary Earth Time and Space Ninjutsu and transfer himself from danger here. How can I say? I observed you from a distance, found you in danger, and rescued you. Fei Duan touched his nose and said. Xiaonan stared at Fei Duan with beautiful big eyes, and asked suspiciously, is it really that simple? Fei Duan was rarely shy, and there are a little more reasons for this. What reason? Please transfer me back if you can, my companions need me. Xiaonan's eyes looked at the young man in front of him eagerly, hoping that he could return to the battlefield, and only by seeing Nagato's life and death with her own eyes could she let go of her heart. It's not possible to return to the battlefield for the time being. As for what the reason is, I can tell you. Fei Duan said shyly, and then seriously looked at Xiaonan, who was raining because of tears in front of him, and said seriously, I want you to be my personal little maid. The kind that can warm the bed. Xiaonan. Since she was a child, where did she have such an experience living in the midst of war, and even she had never even talked about love, but now she was shouted by a little ghost who was so much younger than herself, clamoring to make herself his personal little maid, or the kind that can warm the bed. Xiaonan's face instantly turned red, and a look of shame appeared on his face, looking particularly cute. Fei Duan almost didn't resist jumping up and taking a bite. This look of Xiaonan is too tempting. You are still a child, how can you say such a thing? Xiaonan pointed at the flying section with a flushed face, and said intermittently, obviously, her heart was greatly shocked. Flight segment. Damn it, Mao was reborn in the body of such a little ghost. It's really unpleasant to always be called a little ghost, especially a young lady like Xiaonan, which makes him feel even more sad and indignant. One day when I grow up, I must let you know what big is. Fei Duan whispered to himself, and he was even more secretly ruthless, and he must let them know how powerful it is in the future. And Xiaonan on the side listened to Fei Duan's strange tone. His face couldn't help but turn even redder. He didn't know what kind of tricks Fei Duan would say if he continued to stay here, and quickly said to Fei Duan, please, let me out, my companion really needs me. However, Xiaonan's concern for Nagato made Fei Duan jealous. Fei Duan thought to himself, the little maid I fancy can only care about me alone in the future, how can I always think about others? Nope. Fei Duan said coldly, why? Xiaonan asked eagerly, he's safe now, and he used the Eye of Reincarnation to force Hanzo, so you don't have to worry about him at all. The flying segment explained it simply. So how are you going to get me to leave? Be my personal little maid. The kind that warms the bed. Fei Duan once again shamelessly made his request, and then added, if you don't promise me, I will go and kill Nagato, and then keep you here until you agree. Fei Duan doesn't know what it means to be bright, what he fancy, then he will use all means to get it. Woman same too. Nope. You can't do this. Xiaonan eagerly retorted, for this strange little ghost, she didn't know if Faden really had the ability to threaten Nagato. So you promised me? Fei Duan smiled. I promised you, Xiaonan said in a low voice, but she seemed to remember something. Promise you can, but you have to fulfill a request from me, otherwise I'd rather die. What a request? You just have to say, as long as you agree, what I want is a good maid who is well behaved, cute and obedient, and I will definitely do my best to help you complete your request. When Fei Duan heard Xiaonan promise himself, he almost jumped up unhappy. This is the first time he has successfully won a beautiful big beauty. I want you to help Yahiko avenge it, kill Hanzo the pepperfish, and let me say goodbye to Nagato. Xiaonan looked at Fei Duan, said her request, and also made up her mind, if Fei Duan can really solve the threat of Hanzo of the pepperfish, then it doesn't matter if she becomes Fei Duan's little maid. But when she thought of Fei Duan's description of the little maid, she couldn't help but feel hot on her face. The word bed warming, she had never touched, but it made her feel inexplicably shy in her heart. So that's it, then it's settled, I'll help you solve Hanzo, and you'll be my personal little maid from now on. Fei Duan announced loudly. Episode 39. Xiaonan saw that Fei Duan agreed to his conditions so decisively, and he couldn't help but be suspicious again. Fei Duan's young appearance really didn't look lethal, and the whole silver-haired little Zhengtai looked. Although the 10-year-old in the Hokage world looks more mature, but it is a comparison of the same age, put on the body of Fei Duan and Xiaonan, the height of Fei Duan has just reached Xiaonan's chin. That's a bit embarrassing. Hey. As my little maid, how can you look at me with such eyes? Are you doubting your most powerful master? Fei Duan looked at Xiaonan dissatisfied. How could he doubt the master? Xiaonan, I'm not your maid yet, okay? You haven't even completed the agreement. I'll take you now to kill that old guy Hanzo and let you be my little maid in peace. Fei Duan naturally saw the meaning in Xiaonan's eyes, and reached out and directly pulled Xiaonan's weak and boneless little hand, and his heart couldn't help but ripple. So soft, so slippery. This was the first thought of the flying segment, and Xiaonan did not expect that the flying segment would suddenly attack, and there was no reaction for a while, so he was grabbed by the small hand of the flying segment, and he did not break away after earning several times. He could only blush his little face and let the flying segment pull. Kamui. The spatial vortex instantly swept the two of them away and disappeared into the empty and silent blood sea space. Xiaonan. Nagato. As soon as they appeared outside, Nagato and Konan found each other, and Fei Duan directly transferred the two to Nagato's side with divine power, and at this time, a purple dragon was surrounding Hanzo, ready to launch the most violent blow. Nagato, Xiaonan looked bitterly at the scrawny Nagato, and the huge outer path golem behind him was constantly extracting Nagato's chakra. I've made my choice, Xiaonan, who is he? Was he who took you? Nagato looked calm and asked about the origin of the flying segment. Xiaonan's face turned red. She didn't know how to explain it for a moment. She was embarrassed to say her agreement with Hidan, just stared at Fei Duan with both eyes, hoping that he could give Nagato an explanation. People in this era are very committed. As long as Faden can fulfill her requirements, then she will also keep her promises. Fei Duan did not notice Xiaonan's gaze. His gaze was completely attracted by the outer path golem in front of him, the hideous golem, as the shell of the 10 tails. It still had majestic vitality, and Baiju was created by it. Alas, it's a pity that I haven't evolved the Eye of Reincarnation yet, otherwise, the Outer Path Golem will become my bag. Fei Duan sighed secretly. Nagato in front of him can't be killed yet. He plays a big role in the plot in the back. For his long-term plan, Fei Duan will not do the thing of killing chickens and eggs. Suddenly, Nagato's face changed. He wants to escape. Give me death. Aha! Nagato roared, and the purple dragon also roared, slamming towards Hanzo, who wanted to escape while they were distracted. Instantaneous technique. Hanzo was unhurried. As a man known as a demigod, his instantaneous technique had reached the pinnacle, and he disappeared from Nagato's field of vision in an instant. Ahem! Nagato covered his mouth. A trace of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. The pipe inserted in the back broke, and the outer golem also screamed, disappearing into the white smoke. Xiaonan wanted to help Nagato, but was pulled by Fei Duan. You will be my personal little maid in the future. How can you pull and pull with other men? The flying segment declares its sovereignty. I'm not yet. Xiaonan's face turned red instantly. This guy said it so directly, or in front of his friend Nagato. It was too. Xiaonan? Nagato asked suspiciously, regardless of his injuries. Don't Xiaonan. She has already promised me that as long as I kill Hanzo, she will be my personal little maid. Now, she's here to say your final goodbye. Fei Duan said with a big grin, not caring at all about Nagato's murderous eyes. Xiaonan, this it's true? Nagato looked at her, seeking answers. Xiaonan was also full of bitterness, but still nodded. Alas, Nagato sighed, looked at Xiaonan with a fond expression, and said, perhaps, if he can really kill Hanzo, it is not bad for you to follow him. The path I have taken, it will be dangerous for you to follow me. Xiaonan did not speak. She already understood the path Nagato said. It was a path to becoming a god, and it was also a dangerous road full of dangers and thorns. Okay, that's the end of the final goodbye. If you continue, that guy from Hanzo will run away. Fei Duan pulled Xiaonan's weak and boneless little hand and stroked her palm with his fingers, making Xiaonan red and hot again. Let's go. If he doesn't fulfill his promise, then you will come back. I am always welcome, said Nagato solemnly. Xiaonan replied softly, without saying too much, mainly because Fei Duan would keep teasing her, so that she couldn't say anything. Then, let's go after Hanzo first. Just go and recuperate your injuries yourself. Xiaonan will witness the death of Hanzo with your own eyes. Fei Duan said to Nagato, and then directly in front of Nagato, in the coquettish voice of Xiaonan, he picked up Xiaonan and used Shunwei to chase him. Ah hey! The guy in front of you with the mask. When are you going to run? Fei Duan and Xiaonan's figures appeared not far behind Hanzo. Xiaonan was looking at Fei Duan with a coquettish face. This guy is really bad. He easily hugs and hugs without his permission. He is not his maid. Thinking that Fei Duan was like this now, Xiaonan's face couldn't help but turn even more rosy. If he really became his little maid, then it would not be. Xiaonan didn't dare to continue to think about it. The only thing she was glad about was that Fei Duan had not fully grown up now, and her body was just a 10-year-old little fart child, and she couldn't give herself anything for the time being. At most, she was just addicted. Hanzo, who was running, heard the voice behind him. His face changed greatly, and he instantly turned around and stared at the incoming person. This was the first time that he had not yet sensed when others entered such a close distance behind him. Episode 40. Xiao? Hanzo looked at the silver-haired imp in front of him suspiciously, as well as Xiaonan, who was captured by himself before, and guessed in an instant. Huh? I'm not a member of Xiao. And the little maid beside me, not from now on. Fei Duan said innocently to Hanzo. Oh? I thought how united Xiao was. It turned out that as soon as Yahiko died, someone had rebelled. Hanzo said with disdain, and thought to himself, I still look up to the organization. As soon as he heard the two words of Yahiko, Xiaonan's face instantly became full of hatred, and his friend for many years died in front of his eyes like this, but he couldn't do anything, and that despair made Xiaonan suffer. Once again mentioned by the enemy of Hanzo, the pepper fish, Xiaonan could no longer endure that torture. Kill him. Kill him. From now on, I will be your most loyal maid, and I will only have you in my heart. All of Xiaonan's hopes now are placed on Fei Duan's body, hoping that he can express the knot in his heart for himself. The little maid has spoken. As the little maid who loves the little maid the most, I naturally want to help you out of this evil breath. Fei Duan looked at Xiaonan, who was indignant, and agreed. Stop being angry. When the time comes, wrinkles will not look good. Fei Duan thought of something again. One hand gently caressed Xiaonan's white and tender cheeks, and the other hand was on her thin back, constantly caressing, as if to make her smooth. Xiaonan's state of mind was instantly broken by Fei Duan, and the original sadness was washed away, replaced by that inexplicable shyness. This little ghost always looks for opportunities to take advantage of himself. Pepperfish Hanzo. Is this here to fight, or to show affection, huh? However, this is a great opportunity, and he has always been cautious, and he will not let go of this good opportunity for the other party to be distracted. Whoops. The scythe with the chain whistled, and the blade of the scythe flashed with strange colors, apparently coated with poison, while The bloody March scythe of the flying section collided with it, and Mars overflowed, and the chain scythe was instantly taken back by Hanzo. "Stay here and watch how I fix him," Fei Duan instructed Xiaonan and jumped up. Both men used scythes as weapons, one with chains, the other with ropes made of unknown materials, and in this regard, there are still some similarities. There was a constant clanging sound of gold and iron clanging in the forest, and the two of Fei Duan and Hanzo were fighting hotly, but the only difference was that Fei Duan's body was constantly hanging colors, but Hanzo did not have the slightest injury on his body. Despite the unparalleled reflexes of Sharingan, the foundation of the physical technique of the flying stage is still too poor, and compared with a physical master like Hanzo, it is not a grade at all. Xiaonan looked at the flying section in front of her worriedly, not understanding why he did not use that strange spatial ability, but chose to fight with Hanzo. Watching him constantly injured, she felt an indescribable bitterness and discomfort in her heart. Ugh! Fei Duan roared, and the bloody March scythe swept violently, colliding with Hanzo, and then pulled away. "Almost, after fighting against you for so long, and I have already developed enough understanding of physical skills, then there is no need to continue grinding with you, just kill you." Fei Duan felt the pain all over his body and said without care, "Little ghost, you are too confident." Hanzo looked at the relaxed look in the flying section in front of him. He was a little unbearable as a demigod. This was the first time he had been so despised. Psychic technique, pepperfish. Hanzo quickly froze, a huge psychic formation appeared at his feet, and with a puff of white smoke, the huge earthy yellow pepperfish appeared at his feet, and he stood on the head of the pepperfish, looking down at the flying segment below. Only Hanzo, who works with the pepperfish, is his strongest state. "Well, Volt, up." Hanzo gulped, and the mouth of the pepperfish under him opened sharply, and a purple smoke burst out of its mouth, which was a strong toxin produced by the pepperfish, and even Kankuro, who was resistant to toxins in his body, was paralyzed by the toxin, causing him to be unable to move. "It's a real trouble." Fei Duan looked at the poisonous mist with a large range. He didn't care, but after all, Xiaonan was still standing not far away. Fire escape, fire extinguished. Fei Duan's right hand was held to his mouth. He took a deep breath, and then the terrifying flame spewed out, instantly turning Fei Duan's front into a sea of fire, covering the terrifying distance of thousands of meters in front of him. Slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan, and almost all of the fire ninjutsu was controlled by the flying segment, including the Hao fire that this Madara had used. No matter how strong and wide the toxin is, the poisonous mist cannot break through in such a sea of fire, and it is burned out in the blink of an eye, and even Hanzo and the pepperfish are caught in the sea of fire. How possible? Such a terrifying chakra, such a large-scale fire. Is he really just a teenager? Hanzo looked at the scene in front of him with a horrified face, and for the first time he had doubts about the world. "Jing Fu, escape." Hanzo ordered the pepperfish. He couldn't stay in this sea of hot fire all the time. The pepperfish swallowed Hanzo instantly, and then turned over and fled into the soil, wanting to leave. Hanzo's heart was filled with fear, and escaping was his only choice. Xiaonan also looked at everything in front of him in surprise, couldn't believe that this was made by a dozens of years old ghost. This terrifying amount of chakra, is it really a little ghost head can have? Want to run again? Fei Duan looked at Hanzo with disdain. This person's belief has already changed. He is no longer the original demigod. From his 24-hour rotating guard, you can see how much he spares his life, and often fear will make themselves more and more weak. Kamui. Fei Duan's left eye rotated violently, and the figure of the pepperfish that wanted to burrow into the soil jerked, and the spatial vortex instantly pulled it and Hanzo into the space of the sea of blood. Eternal kaleidoscope level divine power, a powerful psychic beast, can't even resist at all. "Okay, follow me in and clean him up, and I can take my little maid home." Fei Duan looked at Xiaonan with a smile on his face. Xiaonan, on the other hand, turned red, and let Fei Duan who came over pull her little hand and use Shenwei to bring her into the space of the sea of blood. Episode 41. Where is this abominable little ghost? Get out. Hanzo walked out of the belly of the pepperfish, and when he looked at the strange space in front of him, he felt a strong sense of bad luck. The next moment, a spatial vortex appeared in front of his eyes. The figures of Fei Duan and Xiaonan appeared in front of his eyes. The two held hands, and Fei Duan was half leaning on Xiaonan's body, making Xiaonan's white cheeks dyed a layer of red. "Oh, this is your final cemetery. How is it? This place is not bad, right?" Fei Duan didn't look at Hanzo squarely, a person who had lost his faith, like a toothless viper, but his appearance was scary. Abominable. Hanzo looked at the flying section playing with Xiaonan's delicate little hand, and couldn't help but feel angry in his heart. He would actually have the first day of being underestimated. "If it weren't for the preservation of your body, I wouldn't have bothered to pull you into this space, and I would have killed you a long time ago." Fei Duan put down Xiaonan's small hand, walked towards Hanzo, and said with a mocking face, "Fei Duan longs for the corpse or blood of the strong, in order to create a real undead legion in the future. Just like the medicine master pocket in the plot, the feeling of pointing the rivers and mountains, Fei Duan feels that it is still good, especially secretly being a big boss behind the scenes. That feeling is simply not too good. Give me death." Hanzo couldn't stand it anymore and rushed towards the flying section with his scythe in hand. The scythe slashed at Fei Duan's neck in the blink of an eye, and a trace of doubt flashed in Hanzo's eyes. Why didn't he even dodge this time? Get out of the way. In Xiaonan's exclamation, the scythe passed through, and the flying section did not have the slightest damage. Poof. Hanzo's face was full of shock. What kind of weird ninjutsu was this? It would make people pass directly through his body, and at that moment, he couldn't even feel the existence of the flying segment. Hanzo ignored his own wound that Hido's bloody March sickle had cut, allowing blood to flow from the wound on his chest, and the pepperfish on the surface of the sea quickly swam underneath Hanzo and caught him. Who are you? Hanzo's heart was full of bitterness, and he unknowingly provoked such a terrifying existence, and his heart was even more annoyed. Why did he not directly kill Xiaonan in the first place, so that she would not have the opportunity to find such a terrifying helper? Jingfu, go back, this time, my road has come to an end. Hanzo stood at the head of the pepperfish and said in a low voice, actually intending to let the pepperfish dissolve the psychic art and escape. Phew, the pepperfish cried out sadly, not intending to run away, but staying by Hanzo's side, intending to fight him to the death. Oh? Have you started to play out the tragic drama between the owner and the pet? It's a pity, even a psychic beast can't leave. It entered my space, and it still wants to leave? Fei Duan looked at the huge pepperfish and sneered in his heart. This is the space generated by Shinwei, and it is judged by the system that no one can open it except himself. How can a psychic beast come out? Hanzo was silent. The other party didn't even plan to let go of his psychic beast, then he could only choose to fight to the death. After generating the determination to die, Hanzo's chakra actually surged madly, much stronger than before, and also had some of the momentum of the former demigod. However, the flying segment will not waste time, and the blood has stained the blade of the bloody March scythe red, which means that the Grim Reaper has put the scythe of death on the neck of the enemy. Chatter. Fei Duan licked the blood of Hanzo like a mouth in the eerie laughter. This time did not choose to self-harm to obtain the blood of the formation, but directly drew a circle and a triangle in the sea of blood. On the Scarlet Sea, a formation that was also the color of blood was particularly conspicuous, and Fei Duan, standing in the center of this formation, had turned into a black and white Grim Reaper at this moment. See you next time. Fei Duan took out the black spear, and it instantly penetrated his heart, and the huge pain made Fei Duan gasp for air. And Hanzo, who was standing on top of the head of the pepperfish, suddenly knelt down half kneeling, covered his heart with his hands. His face was full of incredulity, and a trace of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. After struggling for a while, he finally lay quietly on the head of the pepperfish and became a corpse. Phew, the pepperfish let out a huge mournful cry, grieving for its dead master, and stayed where it was, with its head on its master's body, and its mountain-like body constantly trembling. Bite. Kill shadow-level powerhouses, kill points increase, 5,000. You okay? Xiaonan hurriedly walked to Fei Duan's side and asked. At this time Fei Duan had returned to its normal state, but his body was covered in blood, and he looked like a demon coming out of hell. Pain. No matter how many times he used this skill, Fei Duan always felt that it was still a thief's pain. Xiaonan, what? The pepperfish is half hidden. Fei Duan's face was full of ambiguous expressions, but he accidentally moved the wound, and it was a painful grin. From now on, I am your maid. Xiaonani gritted his teeth and admitted his identity from now on. He. Fei Duan laughed evilly. Life is so full of a sense of accomplishment, especially to let such a superb woman become his personal little maid. Think about it is a little exciting. Bite. Host completes the first quest to collect beautiful women. Returnee, Xiaonan, mission reward, Thunder Attribute Series Ninjutsu Mastery. The cold voice of the system echoed in Fei Duan's ears, but it sounded so wonderful to him. He didn't expect that this collection task that even he had forgotten for a long time actually gave him such a surprise. After a brief period of paralysis, Hido's memory had a variety of thunder ninjutsu, including Sasuke's Chidori and Kakashi's Rachel, two powerful ninjutsu. You're really my lucky star. Fei Duan jumped directly into Xiaonan's arms, hugged him deadly, felt the sweet fragrance in his arms, and Fei Duan was a burst of heart. Due to the age of the flying segment, he is not as tall as Xiaonan, so he hangs on Xiaonan's chest like a kangaroo, but as a ninja, Xiaonan, it is nothing to bear this weight. But the key is when Xiaonan was treated like this red fruit eats tofu. But as Fei Duan's personal little maid, now she has to get used to such an endless life of being eaten tofu. Episode 42. With the death of Hanzo, Konan, who also completely recognized Faden and was willing to become Hijuan's private little slave girl. And this in turn made the flying segment obtain all the thunder ninjutsu, and the killing system really gave the flying segment an unprecedented surprise, because the people of the Uchiha clan were killed by the flying segment, and the flying segment obtained the physique of fire and thunder, and this thunder ninjutsu can be described as just right. Fei Duan jumped down from Xiaonan with a red little face, and looked at the mournful pepperfish casually. As a psychic beast with not too high spiritual intelligence, it only knew that its master was dead. As for the rest, it couldn't think of so much at all. Can you not kill it? He is just an innocent psychic beast, manipulated by Hanzo, Xiaonan asked softly. She was kind by nature, and she didn't want the pepperfish to die like this. Don't worry, I didn't plan to kill it, but it will be a member of my psychic beast army in the future, Fei Duan said mysteriously. A powerful psychic beast like a pepperfish, Fei Duan does not plan to let it run away like this, but he does. Once he obtains the Eye of Reincarnation, then it will become a member of the army of psychic beasts in his animal path. As a member of his future legion, of course, Fei Duan will not kill it, but he will not let it go, so he will be temporarily trapped in this blood sea space. Monthly reading. The terrifying pupil power instantly enveloped the pepperfish, causing it to fall into an endless illusion, and its huge body fell down on an island and fell asleep. The flying section threw the corpse of Hanzo into the sea of blood, and sank into the deep dark depths, little by little. This sea of blood is not simple. The flying section has been tested, and the artifacts placed in it will not only not be corroded, but will be well preserved, including the flesh, and can also remain incorruptible inside. My little maid, have you changed my name to introduce you to me? I don't even know. Fei Duan deliberately asked Xiaonan. The two of them had not told each other their names since they met. I grew up in the midst of war. I was an orphan. I didn't have a name. I was just called Xiaonan. They all called me that, and later became my name, Xiaonan said in a low tone, thinking of the past that was full of war. My name is Hidan, now known as the survivor of the Uchiha clan, and I will be your master in the future. If you disobey in the future, you will be spanked by the master. Fei Duan stared at Xiaonan's upturned place, his eyes full of evil. Xiaonan was uncomfortable by Fei Duan's red fruit eyes, and quickly said, "Where are we going next?" Back to Konoha? However, she heard Hida say that he was a survivor of Uchiha, so it was normal to return to Konoha, and she was also curious about what Hida had come here for. She naturally didn't think that Yahiko's death was related to Fei Duan. Even if she knew Tuanzang's conspiracy, Fei Duan could pick it clean and throw the pot on Tuanzang's head. Anyway, Tuanzang would not refute it, so why not? There is really nothing to do here. Let's go back to Konoha first. Just stay in Konoha during this time. Just wait for the curtain to open. There is no need to run around. Hida's exact age is now 13 years old. Naruto Sasuke he doesn't know, but the estimate is 5 or 6 years old, according to his estimates. At most 3 years, Naruto Sasuke will enroll, and at that time, it is also the beginning of the plot. The real excitement is also coming, and the flying segment is looking forward to it. Let's go. Follow me back to Konoha, my cute little maid. Fei Duan jumped directly onto Xiaonan's back, allowing this well-behaved and charming woman to carry herself on her back and feel the warmth and fragrance under her body. The flying section only feels that life is so good, and Xiaonan was soft, and Fei Duan's hot snort spat on her neck, making her feel weak and shy, but she did not stop Fei Duan's intimate behavior. Her mind had begun to change towards a well-behaved maid who obeyed Fei Duan, and was no longer a strong and cold-blooded female ninja. Fei Duan felt the charming and mature body under him, only felt a faint impulse in some places, and sighed in his heart, wait another 3 years. Up to 3 years. I must eat this leprechaun. No way, who made his current body not mature enough? You can only see it, you can't eat it. Kamui. As the spatial vortex appeared, the space of the sea of blood became silent again, only a pitch-black crow, and an earthy yellow pepperfish. I have to say that time and space ninjutsu is really the best way to rush, than what to take a plane or a train. I don't know how much faster. At this time, in front of the desk of the third generation of Hokage, Sarutobi looked at the book in front of him with a solemn face, as if there was something terrifying recorded on it. And the next moment, a spatial vortex appeared in the room, and Xiaonan with a flying section on his back appeared in the room. Whoops. Ape Fei Ri was taken aback, and the book in his hand came out of his hand, and was thrown out by it, just smashing into Fei Duan's head. Syllable. Fei Duan took the book as soon as he grabbed it, and he was a little drowsy on Xiaonan's back, so he picked it up and read it. Affectionate Heaven? Author. Flying segment. Xiaonan. Ape Flying Sun Chopper. Xiaonan secretly took a sip. This kind-looking old man was actually so unorthodox. It was even more excessive than the color of the flying segment, reading this kind of book in the daytime, and having such a solemn expression. Fei Duan threw the book to the 3 generations of old men, and said with a mocking face, "Old man, it seems that you are an old man. Presumably, one of the 3 ninjas, the leprous immortal, is your true legend." The ape flying sun chopped the whole person in an instant. The painting style changed abruptly, and roared loudly, "Next time come in and knock on the door for me. It is not allowed to be used in this way, otherwise. It's a pity that the 3 generations of old men otherwise didn't come up with a solution for half a day. Would they be able to fight the flying segment to relieve their anger? But now he is not sure that he can defeat it, and he has an immortal body and a flying segment of kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes. Find me something. Ape Fei Ri said angrily, and didn't bother to think about anything with Fei Duan. Hee. Fei Duan laughed and said, "Old man, don't you think I seem to have lost a place to live? I don't have a property in Konoha village yet." Ape Flying Sun Chopper. Ahem, as the Hokage of Konoha, every bit of ours is our own hard work, and the style of getting something for nothing. Sarutobi spoke generously, but was immediately interrupted by Fei Duan. You just said that you will not give an arrangement. Want a house? Build your own. Ape Fei Ri didn't want to think about it, so he refused Fei Duan's request. Who let you disturb my interest in reading? Fei Duan glanced at the 3 generations of old men playfully and said, oh, today in the Hokage office, I really want to see something amazing. What about you? Xiaonan? Xiaonan instantly understood the thoughts of this little master, and immediately said, Xiaonan seems to have seen what the master said, but I don't know what will happen if it is passed out. Fei Duan secretly said in his heart, children can be taught. Worthy of being the caring little maid I admire. Sarutobi Sunchop, Episode 43, You, are you two really going to off my old man? Ape Fei Sun's head is about to smoke. This faceless Fei Duan doesn't know where to turn such a beautiful maid. The two of them sang and reconciled like this, and they didn't put themselves in their eyes at all. But who let himself be caught by them? No way. Sarutobi waved his hand helplessly, and said, there is a small courtyard next to Sasuke's current residence. Hurry up and get out for me. Don't disturb my old man's retreat. Then thank the old man, let's go. Fei Duan said with a smile, and suddenly remembered something again. Old man, this little maid of mine doesn't need any identification or anything. No need. Ape Fei Ri was not angry, and his eyes were full of jealousy. How could this hairy boy find such a perfect maid? But my 3 generations of Hokage, but there was not even a person who served tea and water. Seeing that Fei Duan was about to use the ability of the Sharingan to leave, Ape Fei Ri Chop roared loudly, let me go to the main gate. Fei Duan touched his nose helplessly, since the old hair is rushing, then let's give him face. Xiaonan, let's go, don't talk to this single old man. Fei Duan lay on Xiaonan's back and ordered, and Xiaonan obediently carried the flying section out, leaving Ape Fei Ri to sulk in the office alone. Let me live next to Sasuke? It seems that the old man wants me to guide Sasuke. Fei Duan lay on Konan's back, silently thinking about the intention of the ape flying sun, and he even suspected that the room next to Sasuke might have been arranged by him a long time ago. However, how could Sarutobi think of Fei Duan's plans for Sasuke? In that case, then I'll tweak it well, Sasuke Uchiha, and I hope you won't be disappointed when the time comes. A weird smile appeared on Fei Duan's face. Xiaonan walked on the street with Fei Duan on his back, looking for their next place to live according to the direction Fei Duan said. People on the street looked at such a strange combination with amazement. The men's eyes were full of envy, and the women were full of jealousy for Xiaonan's beauty. When Hidan passed by the small playground with a swing, his gaze couldn't help but be attracted by a person, that is, a little girl with black silk like a waterfall and snow-white pupils. His name was Hinata. At this time, Hinata was looking at him with an expectant gaze. Hinata missed her only playmate very much, but for several days, she didn't find Feidan's figure, which also made her look a little lonely. It's Hinata. I haven't seen it for a few days, and it seems to be much more beautiful. Fei Duan said with a grin. Hinata was laughed at by Fei Duan. His face turned red in an instant and he couldn't speak, and began to circle his hands on his chest again. This cute demeanor really made Fei Duan feel cute. Fei Duan jumped off Xiaonan's back, pulled Xiaonan to Hinata's side, and introduced, Hinata, this is my personal little maid, called Xiaonan. When I am not there in the future, you can also let her play with you. Sister Xiaonan is good. Hinata said hello politely, and then looked at the small hands that Fei Duan and Xiaonan held tightly together, and he couldn't help but feel a little lost in his heart, but he quickly plucked up his courage. Hinata walked up to the flying section and carefully pulled the left hand of the flying section. Brother the flying section, can you play with me today? That pitiful look, coupled with that well-behaved and cute appearance, Fei Duan was instantly conquered, and agreed without thinking, don't say it's to play with you. You just want me to catch the tailed beast and play with you. Hinata laughed happily, although she felt that Fei Duan was talking big, but her heart was warmer than ever. So, Fei Duan and Hinata sat on the swing separately. Xiaonan, a beautiful woman with 1,000 charms, became the only coolie at this moment, constantly running back and forth between the two swings, one moment this push, the other that shake, so not busy. The flying section is even more refreshing. This thing seems to be quite fun. With coolies like Xiaonan, even playing on the swing has become much more interesting. The small playground was filled with the laughter of Hinata and lowly Hinata, as well as Konan's silent complaints. At dusk, Hinata said goodbye to Fei Duan with a reluctant face. Goodbye brother Fei Duan. We'll see you tomorrow. Hidan also smiled and waved his hand, looking at the wary Hyuga family member with a playful expression, thinking in his heart that maybe it would not be long before Hinata would stop his contact with Hinata. Then, Fei Duan climbed onto Xiaonan's back again. Since having this little maid, he was too lazy to take a step. Nephrite warm fragrance. How could he give up the great resources in front of him? Xiaonan once again blushed and endured the flying segment that was constantly acting strange on his back, and carried the flying segment back to the small courtyard assigned by the ape flying sun. As soon as I entered the courtyard, there was a knock on the door outside. I'll take a look. Xiaonan quickly put the flying section down. Since the flying section was lying on his back, his hand has not stopped, always quietly probing on Xiaonan's body, although he did not fully extend the wolf hand, but Xiaonan was also harassed by him. Now that he had an excuse, he immediately put down the flying segment and walked out. Oh little brother, who are you looking for? Xiaonan looked at the little boy in front of him suspiciously. I'm looking for the flying section, Uchiha flying section. Sasuke replied coldly, while looking into the courtyard. Sasuke personally watched Hida stay in this small courtyard, so he immediately came to him. He already had a decision in his heart, and now he needed Hida to help him turn hatred into strength. Let him in. The sound of flying sections came from the courtyard. Yes, Konan's replied, and then he put Sasuke in, following behind Sasuke. His eyes were full of strange looks, the aura full of hatred on Sasuke's body. No matter how it could not be concealed, this was what made Konan's doubt. She didn't know what was going on inside Konoha. I want to worship you as a teacher. Please teach me how to gain strength, Sasuke said straight to the point, not minding Hibito's scrutinizing gaze at all. Oh? Finally figured it out? Fei Duan said playfully, but he had an idea in his heart. Starting tomorrow, I will train you. You go back first. Hida waved his hand and asked Sasuke to go back. Sasuke didn't hesitate and left without looking back. The unrelated ones are gone. Are we ready to rest too, my little maid? Fei Duan smiled evilly and looked at Xiaonan, who was full of shyness in front of him. You rest? But it's still early, and it's not completely dark yet. Xiaonan twisted and pinched. Not early, not early, go to sleep now. Oh, by the way, you, as my little maid, naturally want to sleep with me. Fei Duan's eyes looked directly at Xiaonan, although he can't eat it now, but it's always okay to have fun. Thinking of Xiaonan's graceful posture, Fei Duan's heart was fiery. Ugh. Xiaonan was pulled closer to the room by Fei Duan amid the exclamation, and there was a burst of shy anger. Episode 44. In the blink of an eye, spring and autumn came, and Fei Duan also spent 3 full years in this world, growing from a childish young man to a strong and handsome young man. His height has long surpassed Xiaonan, who was still a head taller than himself, and his silver hair is smart and neat, and the whole person looks extremely energetic and much more mature than he was at the beginning. 3 years have passed. Hida has also won the title of a black and white god of death in Konoha, which is fearful, although there has been no war in the major villages for 3 years, but there has been an open and secret fight, and some small frictions have occurred from time to time. And Fei Duan often took the initiative to ask for help and went out to kill the enemy, so that Fei Duan's terrifying death division by blood secret spell spread his reputation among the 5 major villages. But it was just a daunting reputation. Now the other 4 villages know that Konoha has an undead ninja named Hida, who is a survivor of the Uchiha clan, and he has opened a kaleidoscope of terrifying existences, which makes them like a knot in their throats, constantly striking in secret to solve the threat of Hida. Today is a special day. Fei Duan named this day as his birthday, because today is the beginning of the plot, very commemorative, plus Fei Duan has a very important thing to do today. That is a more memorable thing. Xiaonan. I'm 16 years old today. Hee. Hey, Fei Duan stared closely at the beauty in front of him. That graceful figure, shy face, and mature temperament all made Fei Duan more and more unbearable. Line of harmony. At night, Hida took Sasuke to the woods and began another day of training. Sasuke came to the Hibito every day to train, and the silent and uninhabited forest was the best place for them to train. And the training of the flying section is also very simple. That is, teaching fire and Chidori to Sasuke, let him practice every day, and play chakra every day to the extreme. Then, it was Sasuke's most feared nightmare time. In order to arouse Sasuke's hatred and make it grow, every day at the end of training, Sasuke lay weakly on the ground, and he would be brought into his most fearful fantasy by Hidan with moon reading. Taste fear and hatred day after day, which is also the source of motivation that Hido has come up with so far and can most stimulate Sasuke's growth. It turns out that this move has a significant effect, and Sasuke even opened the Sangatama Sharingan eye under his stimulation, and even had a choka level of chakra at the age of only 8, and Sasuke in the same period in the plot does not know how much stronger. What's more, Sasuke is worthy of being a good user of Chidori. Hidan has just taught it to him, and within 2 days Sasuke has mastered this powerful thunder ninjutsu, but it has not yet derived the Chidori sharp gun and the Chidori flow and the like. However, Hidan is still curious about the later Chunin exam. Sandstorm Eye era will be forced by Sasuke? New Year's Day reading non-stop, charge 100 get 500 VIP bonds. Immediately preemptive, event period, January 1st to January 3rd, episode 45. Early the next morning, Fei Duan was dressed under Xiaonan's service. Of course, Fei Duan did not lack oil in the process, and Xiaonan was always flushed, and his eyes were spring water before he gave up. Xiaonan, go, something very interesting will happen today. Fei Duan decisively lay on Xiaonan's back, and Fei Duan, who was already larger than Xiaonan, lay on his back, which was simply unbearable to look at directly. But this has long become a habit for the flying segment, and Xiaonan has already acquiesced to the habit of the flying segment, just smiled and carried the flying segment out. In her eyes, this is a normal state of intimacy between her and the flying segment. Moreover, as a ninja, this physical exertion is not enough at all. You must know that Xiaonan is actually a master who has reached the quasi-shadow level. Master, it seems to be quite lively today. Is there something going on? On the street, Xiaonan asked the flying section behind him. Today is the graduation assessment of Konoha's little ninjas. As long as you finally complete the doppelganger assessment, you will officially become a ninja in Konoha. Fei Duan explained to Xiaonan. His right hand constantly brushed Xiaonan's hair around his fingertips, and from time to time, he also put his nose up to smell the faint fragrance. Passers-by on the street have long turned a blind eye to this scene in front of them. Since 3 years ago, this famous guy has already looked like this, and the well-behaved little maid has nothing to say. I don't know how Fei Duan can bear to let such a delicate beauty go out with her back every day. If it weren't for the force of the flying section, I am afraid that someone would have wanted to rescue Xiaonan from water and fire. Let's go. Take me to the classroom where Irika is. Our protagonist is there. Fei Duan said with a smile. Although Xiaonan didn't understand what the protagonist was, he still obediently turned his back to the place. He said, after 3 years in Konoha, she has long been familiar with all corners of Konoha, and she can easily find every place. You know, Konan is a sentient ninja. Whip? What are you doing here? Irika asked in amazement as she looked at the flying segment that appeared at the door of the classroom. Feng is the codename that Hidan has used in Konoha in recent years, and as for his real name, only a few people can still remember it. Irika and Mizuki looked nervously at the silver-haired man in front of them, although the other party was lazily lying on Xiaonan's back, but it still brought them great pressure. The name of the black and white god of death is now so widespread in Konoha that his terrifying and cruel way of dealing with enemies is that even Konoha's comrades are in awe, or fear. Huh? Can't I come? Fei Duan opened his eyes, tilted his head to reveal his head from Xiaonan's left shoulder, and looked at Irika and Mizuki with scarlet chakra eyes. I heard that today is their graduation examination. I just want to come and visit. Is this not okay? Swish. Irika and Mizuki's cold sweat instantly flowed, and being stared at by the chakra eyes made him look like a glow. Mizuki quickly catered to it. Yes. Of course. It is their honor to come and visit their graduation examination. Irika seemed to want to say something, but was stopped by Mizuki's grab. Just kidding. Refute this? I'm afraid that 10 lives are not enough for him to cut. Irika really wanted to pluck up the courage to say that this was not in line with the regulations. The examiner of the graduation examination was stipulated, and no outsiders could be present. But because of the horror of the falcon, coupled with Mizuki's prevention, he could only do it rudely. As for the little ninjas in the classroom, they looked at the two who suddenly visited, their faces full of puzzlement. Only Sasuke's cold face showed a hint of fanaticism. The power of the flying segment was exactly what he was pursuing. The flying segment was now his biggest goal. If he could defeat the flying segment, then he should be able to defeat that man. But Sasuke didn't know that Hidan had already surpassed Itachi far away, and even if Sasuke killed Itachi, he would not be able to defeat Hibito. There is also a happy gaze also on the flying section, that is from Hinata's little loli, for this big brother who often finds time to play with him. Hinata's heart is full of good feelings and inexplicable love. When I see him, I am always happy and inexplicably shy. Fei Duan sensed Hinata's gaze and smiled back at him, while Hinata lowered his head with a red face, and Fei Duan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This little loli is still as shy as ever. But it is this kind of shyness that makes people full of the desire to conquer and cultivate the little loli. Xiaonan carried the flying section on his back, walked to the classroom, found 2 positions at the back of the classroom, and sat down side by side. Irika also breathed a sigh when he saw that the foil had settled down. He was afraid that this unscrupulous guy would make some kind of moth. Today's assessment is doppelganger. As long as you pass the test, you will receive Konoha forehead protection and become a true ninja. Irika said with some excitement. Obviously he is still full of expectations for these little guys. These are the main forces of Konoha's new generation. Hidan looked at the little ghosts who went up one after another to be assessed. Only Sasuke completed the doppelganger technique with great ease, and even divided into as many as 5, which made a group of little ghosts marvel. Sakura and Ino were even more loving, and almost didn't jump up and throw Sasuke to the ground. Naruto, on the other hand, was indignant and dissatisfied with Sasuke's pretense, but disobedience was obviously useless, and it was his turn next. Naruto walked to the podium with a bitter face. The doppelganger technique was his most rare, but after all, it was an assessment, and he could only muster up the courage to cheer himself up. Doppelganger! Naruto shouted with his hands sealed. However, it turned out that light momentum was useless, and Naruto failed as always, only separating a half-dead doll-like object, lying limply on the ground. Irika's face turned dark and he judged Naruto to have failed the assessment, while Mizuki, as in the plot, persuaded him to win Naruto's favor and use Naruto. Fei Duan looked at everything in front of him interestingly, but his hands were not free. Under the cover of the table, he constantly made strange things on Xiaonan's little white rabbit, kneading wantonly, so that Xiaonan did not dare to breathe, and sat in place with a red face, motionless.